My apologies for the delay in the shiurim in these last 2 days with limited access to our office at the shul. We have more technical difficulties, a little more difficult to get the shiurim uploaded online on time, but we are certainly continuing, and we hope to continue to do so with God's help. And we hope everybody's doing safe. Everybody's safe. We hope everybody's healthy, and we pray that this all end smoothly. And we dedicate the shiur, Refuah Shalema, for anyone who's suffering at the moment and needs a complete and speedy recovery. So we are on Kof Ches Amud Aleph 108a, and we are 5 lines from the bottom of the page, second to last word. We're discussing, of course, the story of Noah. That's what we're holding now. The generation that the Mishnah identified as one who loses their share in the world to come. No judgment and no share in the world to come. That's correct. Yep. And the Gemara went on to discuss Noah's position, his relationship with the world around him, God's thought process we spoke about in the previous class, and the nature of the people's sin, etc. So we continue in that vein. Darish Rabbi Yossi Demin Kesari. Rabbi Yossi from Kesari expounded as follows. What's the meaning of the verse? It's a verse in Eov, in Job, which is found Job 24:18, which is Kalu al pnei hamayim tekol chalkasam ba'aretz, which, thanks to our trusted Art Scroll translation, reads as follows. Job 24:18. He glides swiftly on the water's surface. Right? That's Kalu al pnei hamayim. Their portion in the land is forsaken. Tekulol chelkasam ba'aretz. So, Malamed says Rabbi Yossi Demin Kesari. This teaches us that Noach, the righteous one, would admonish the people of a generation, and tell them, Asu teshuvah, do teshuvah. Them lav, for if you don't do teshuvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi aleichem esamabel. God is going to bring upon you the mabel, and your corpses will, blow up and float above the water, kazikin, like wineskins, filled with air, just floating on the water. Shenemar, as the verse reads, Kalu al pnei hamayim, it's swiftly above the water. Now, not only will you perish, and this is what Noah is telling the people, not only will you perish and your corpses be floating above the water, quite a gruesome description, a very graphic one, but he says, moreover, you will be, curses will be taken on your name for the rest of the world, meaning to say, a person will curse somebody else by saying, let you be like those of the flood. So their names, their death will not just be a death, but will live on in infamy for curses for all time to come, as it were. Shenemar, as the verse reads, the line of the verse, Tekolul chalkasam ba'aretz. So we translated it here, our article translated Tekolul chalkasam ba'aretz to mean their portion in the land is forsaken. But the word Tekolul actually could also come from the word Kalel, which means cursed. So Tekolul chalkasam, cursed will be your portion, ba'aretz, in the land, meaning in the land, people will curse each other by your portion. Now, the continuation of that verse reads, Lo yifne derech kramim. They didn't go through the ways of the vineyards. So what does this mean? Explains the Gemara. Malamed, this teaches us mefanim derech kramim. They would cut through paths of the vineyards, meaning not instead of traversing the way they're supposed to on regular road, but they would cut through the vineyards, meaning to say they would go on a negative path in evil ways. Amar Loi, and in explaining what this means, says the Gemara, this teaches us, this teaches us that the people would tell Noah is admonishing them and telling them and warning them that they are going to float, their corpses will float in the earth, in the water, and that people will curse for generations to come, following, saying, let people be like you. So the people would tell him, or they would tell him, okay, you're warning us that the flood's coming. Who's stopping the flood from coming? You say that this is God bringing the flood. Okay, so why didn't you bring it already? So Noach would tell them, I have one precious item that I have to remove from amongst you, meaning there's one human being that has to live out his life before I bring the flood, because he's righteous. And this is Musa Shelach. Musa Shelach HaTzadik, an older man. Noah is also a few hundred, 600 years old, I think it was. And but that in those days, 600 was still an average lifetime. It was still a midlife. But Mr. Shelach was much older, a righteous person, and God wanted him to live out his years before the flood arrived. And that's where he says, I have one jewel, one beautiful thing that I have to remove from amongst you before the flood arrives. So in Cain, if so, the people would respond, we're on top of Kuf Chesem days, top of 108b, we won't change our ways. We won't go away from our... We won't turn away from the going through the vineyards. Meaning to say, this is a play on the verse which said before, means they won't turn away from the pathways of their... We won't clear out the pathways of the vineyards, meaning to say they would still go through vineyards and unpleasant ways rather than walking the way they're supposed to. It's a metaphor for someone walking off the straight and narrow path, but deviating and going through the vineyards. It's saying, look, if there's a tzaddik around in the world, the whole world will stand just for him, and we can continue sinning. So the obvious question is, what kind of response is this? So Noach tells them there's a guy, Mr. Shalach, he's a righteous person, and God doesn't want to destroy the world for him. And when he passes, then the flood's coming. So one could read this, and I guess the simple reading might be that they didn't believe him. They said, you're playing some games. There's a guy, Mr. Shelach, he's still alive, and that's why God's not bringing the flood. If you think there's a God bringing the flood, let him bring the flood already. And maybe they're just blowing him off kind of thing. But perhaps deep what they're saying is, there's a certain psychological game that a person can play in himself in saying, I don't behave so well, but at least I know there's some good people in the world. And the fact that there are some good people in the world, and that, it's nice to hear there's good people in the world, and it kind of takes off my shoulders the burden of responsibility in being the good guy. And that's maybe what they're telling Noach. Oh, so Noach, you're righteous, God's saving you, and there's a fellow Mr. Shelach. Okay, so, there are good people. Okay, so we're misbehaving. It's not such a big deal. It kind of, less people feel, it happens sometimes, people feel the burden of being the right person. They feel that burden a little less, thinking, others will take care of it. Others will take care of it. Others will be the good guy. Others will serve God properly. I'm just a regular, leave me alone. I don't need to be bothered. If nobody else was doing the right thing, maybe I'd have to step up. But now there's other people. What do I have to step up for? Maybe that's kind of what they're telling Noach, and therefore the lesson to us not to be that way. When there's an opportunity to do something good, take the opportunity. Don't say, there are others that are righteous, and they'll take care of it. Darash Rava. Rava expounded. Ma'dik, what's the meaning of the verse? Also a verse in Eov, in Job 12:5. The verse reads, so the Hebrew is Lapid buz la'ashtos shana nochen lamoyade regel, which translates as, okay, I can't find the verse properly here to get the full translation, but okay, here it is. A torch of scorn to the one who is complacent in his thoughts. He is destined to be among those whose feet slip. So it's two lines in the verse. Lapid buz ashtos shanan, a torched flame to the one who is thinking in his thoughts. Shanan means thinking in his thoughts. Ashtosis means to be sitting. They just think bad ideas and don't do anything. Nachain, they're right. Lamoyade, to be lamoyade regel, to He is destined to be among those whose feet slip. Lamoya deregel, their feet slip. Okay, so what's the meaning of the verse, says Rava? Malamed, this teaches us Noach HaTzadik would reprimand the people of Amalan and tell them, Dvarim shem kashim kalapidim, words that are strong as flames. This idea taken from the first half of the verse, lapid buz, lashtase shanan. This word lapid, using word lapidim, strong, harsh words like a torches. V'hayu mevazanoisai, and they would laugh it off. Coming from the next word, lapid means torches, and the next word buz could also be translated as laughing off, mevazin. And they would laugh off at him. In what way? Amrullah, they would tell him, Zakin, old man, Teva Zulama, what are you building this ark for? Amrullah, he would tell them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi alechem es mabul. God's bringing upon you a flood. Amru, they would tell him, Mabul Shalma, what kind of flood is it going to be? In Mabul Shal Eish, if it's a flood of fire, Yeshlan Dover Echad, we have this item, V'alita Shma, it's called Alita, and it protects us from fire. We'll protect ourselves. V'im Shalmayim, if it's of water, who maybe he's going to bring, then Imina Aretz, if he's going to make water come up from the ground, V'im Shalmayim who maybe, if he's bringing water, Imina Aretz who maybe, if he's going to bring the water up from the earth, Yeshlano Ashoshi is Shal Barzel, we have plates. This word Ashoshi is similar to the third word in that verse, Lashtosois. We have plates of barzel, of iron, which will cover the earth, which will prevent the water from coming forth. If he's going to bring the water falling from the heaven, we have this item, and it's called Ekev. And it is waterproof and protect us from the water coming from the heavens. The others say it's not Ekev, rather Ekesh Shmo, it's called Ekesh. Okay, so they tell him, look, we have protection against all kinds of things. We have protection against fire. We have protection against water coming from the earth. We can put plates of iron, and we have ways of protecting ourselves from rains from the heaven, waterproof items. So we're okay. Amar lahem. So Noach told them, "Hu mevi mibein ikvei raglechem." He's going to be bringing the flood from between your legs. What does that mean? So there's two versions to what this means. One is, Rashi gives two interpretations. The seed that comes from between the legs, the seed, that's going to be the end of you. Another is that if God wanted to, He can make water burst forth from your leg. In other words, your man-made stuff of plated iron and this idea of this thing called Alita, and this other thing called Akesh or Akev, none of that's going to work. If God wanted to, He can make water water burst forth from your leg. The verse reads, the continuation of that verse was, they're ripe for the feet slipping, but over here it's for what their feet will do to them. Their feet are ready to take them. From the feet themselves, they can be destroyed. So obviously the floor is open for deeper interpretations, as is always, but I'm suggesting perhaps just on a simple reading, it would seem like they had confidence in their own man-made abilities. We have iron, we have this other material, we're okay, we can survive, and we can hold off any disaster by our man-made ideas. And comes Noach to say, sorry, you can't do it. If God wanted to, He can make the problem come from within you, and it's not as if some plate from your leg, and it's not as if some iron that you've created is going to stop that. And somehow, these are very potent words for nowadays, when man gets very confident in our discoveries and our abilities, and we believe and we feel invincible because we can solve every problem. And comes a tiny little virus that's invisible to the eye and reminds us we're not in control. We're not in control. And this feeling on the one hand could feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not in control, and you lose. But on the other hand, it's liberating. I'm not in control. God's in control. I know what I have to do. I know what God expects of me. And what God does with that, He'll do as He sees fit. And it can be seen actually as a very liberating way of thinking. Instead of being worried, why can I fix that problem? How can I fix that problem? And when we understand that not everything is up for us to fix, and not everything is something that humans can fix. And it's in God. At the end of the day, this is God's choice and God's decision. It's liberating. We don't have to worry and stress so much about all the things that come around. And maybe this is what the conversation is going on here, where they're saying we can protect against any problem. And I was telling them, you're missing the point. Your bodies yourself can produce the problem. You're manipulating materials outside of you and think you can fix all problems and prevent all disasters that way. But if God decided to, it can come from inside of you and you can control that. From in your own leg, and you still can't control it. Okay, further. Tanya, we learned, maybe the waters of the flood, kashim kishif chazera, were as difficult as, kashim is as hard. I assume it means that the liquid was such that it was as dense, I think the word is, as seed. As in, it wasn't as liquefied. It was more dense. Like a seed is more dense than just pure water. As the verse reads, they're ready for the time for the feet slipping. The same verse, but also can mean for the time of the feet, that which comes from the feet, meaning from one's loins, like seed. Amar Rav Chisda says, they messed up in the heat of their lust, in the seed, in sin, and therefore they were judged, they were punished in the heat. Could be a reference to what we said earlier, that the liquid was such that it had the same texture. That's the word I was looking for. It has the same texture as semen, or could be literally it was a semen texture flood. That's what it seems like. What's the verse that he has to cite this idea that the water was hot? So Ksiv Hacha, the verse reads here with respect to the fact that the waters of the flood subsided. The choice of words of the verse to describe the water subsiding is Vayishku Hamayim. The chapter opens up, and God remembered and God remembered Noah, V'eskol and all the animals, V'eskol Behim and all the undomesticated, domesticated animals, Asher Ita B'tev that are with him in the ark, Vayavar Lakim Ruach al Oretz, and God made a wind pass over the land, Vayishoiku Hamayim, and the water subsided. So this word Vayishoiku, the water subsided, comes from the root word. The root word here is the Shin and the Chaf. Those are the two root letters. And that, Ksiv Hasam, and this compares to a verse written elsewhere in the Megillah, V'chamas HaMelech Shachacha, and the king's anger subsided. So his anger subsided, talking about Achashverosh, when he was told about this is after Esther tells him about the plan of Haman, and they hung Haman on the gallows, and as soon as Haman was hung on the gallows, the king's anger calmed down. So the word for calming down here is shachacha, same word as vayishoichu, the shin and the chaf, and just like there, the king's anger, his heat, calmed down. So likewise, when the water subsided, using the same word, it actually doesn't just mean subsided in that its height went down, but its heat went down as well, implied by the verse vayishoichu. Now the verse, the Gemara continues. The verse describes the beginning of the flood as beginning after a 7-day period. Vayhi l'shivas hayomim. It was after 7 days, 7-day period. And the water of the flood was on the land. So ask the Gemara, what's the nature of these 7 days? What 7-day period are we referring to? Amar Rav says, these are the 7 days of mourning after Mr. Shelach's passing. The Shiva, we mentioned before that Noach said there was a great tzaddik who had to die first before the flood can come, and this is Mr. Shelach. So says the Gemara, after he passed 7 days of mourning period, a Shiva period, and then the flood arrived. This comes to teach you that the mourning of a tzaddik is great. That is just the mourning of a tzaddik, and the eulogizing, the mourning of a tzaddik is great enough to hold off tragedy. Lavoi from coming. Another interpretation of what the 7 days means, 7-day period. The Shivas for the 7, meaning to say that what happened was a negation of the original 7, namely, God changed around the order of creation, which God made in the 7 days. The sun rose in the west, and setting in the east. Second interpretation of the 7-day period. Not that the 7-day period, but rather that God changed the nature of the 7 days of the week, or the 7 days of creation. Another interpretation of the 7 days is God allotted for them a great number of days for them to do teshuvah, meaning first God said you'll have 120 years to do teshuvah, and after the 120 days, God says, Zman Katan, I'll give you another 7 days. After 120 years, and they still fail to do teshuvah, God says, I'm going to give you another 7 days. Hopefully, in these extra 7 days, they'll do teshuvah. Nothing happens. That was interpretation number 3. Fourth interpretation as to what the 7-day period is. L'shivas yoma means shetimon me'ein olam haba. God made them taste of the world to come, which is the 7th millennia, which we talked about earlier in this chapter. Kidei sheyedu ma toiva monu mehem, so that they should know what they are missing out on. They're missing out on the share in the world to come. So God made them appreciate that time. I have a thought about how these different interpretations play out, so I'm going to try to develop the thought as I speak it here, and we'll see where I go with it. We might maybe suggest that these interpretations actually build one on the other rather than alternatives, even though the simple reading is Davar Acham means an alternative, but maybe they build on each other. The first is Mr. Shelek dies. The mourning of the tzaddik is great enough to hold off the calamity, the flood. So we already know before that the life of Mr. Shelek holds off the calamity. The tzaddik himself does that. But then the mourning of the tzaddik does it as too. The mourning of the tzaddik is not done by the tzaddik. It's done by those who are living after the tzaddik passes. Meaning to say, if those who are living still hang on to the messages, still mourn, they're still thinking about, they're still discussing the message that the tzaddik left behind, that too would be enough to hold off the flood, not just the tzaddik himself. And that leads to the next point, which is when the tzaddik dies, the world is turned over. The moment the mourning ends, and the tzaddik's message is no longer lived, the world is upside down. Without the righteous giving direction, or at least those who are living taking direction from the tzaddikim who have passed, the world is upside down. The sun's rising in the west and setting in the east. Things are going awry. Notwithstanding all of that, God gives us plenty of time, Zman Gadol, to do teshuvah, and at least Zman Katan, a small time to do teshuvah. Notwithstanding the fact that the world is turned upside down, there's still time to do teshuvah. And eventually, everybody will get to taste the share in the world to come. Because at the end of the day, everybody's going to do teshuvah. And if means God's going to make you taste it, and the taste of the world to come, that will do you teshuvah, then so be it. God's willing to give you even the world to come before you earned it, hoping you're going to earn it. So perhaps these are stages in the availability for teshuvah. When the tzaddik's there, when we're mourning the tzaddik, even after the mourning tzaddik and the world is turned upside down, there's still lots of time, and then at least a short amount of time. And then if all hope is lost, God's willing to give you a taste of your reward, hoping you'll take it. This is how far Hashem is willing to go to offer us the opportunity to do teshuvah before the mabul, metaphorically, comes around. As always, the floor is open, and we hope everybody's doing well and safe, and we look forward to continuing, God willing, in the days to come.